Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this session uh, where we have the good fortune of having with us one of the emergent names in Latin American literature of today, and that is Rodrigo Blanco Calderón from Venezuela. Rodrigo, welcome to India, welcome to Kochi. And this is a city, this is a province where I think it's in India, if we can say this is the place where they best know Latin American literature. It's available in translation, so people here are actually quite aware of Latin American literature, but mainly through the figure of Gabriel Garcia Marquez and so on and so forth, and maybe perhaps Roberto Bolaño. So I think it's indeed a great moment to have you here. Let me introduce our guest for today. That is, so Rodrigo is basically from Venezuela, but he's born in Caracas, but he lives in Malaga in Spain from last 2, 3 years, isn't it?
7 years.
Oh, last 7 years, okay. And from what I have read, you studied your university degree in Caracas, in the Central University of Caracas.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I live in Caracas until I was 34, so the most part of my life.
Oh, yeah, the most beautiful part of your life you've done, yeah. And then Rodrigo went to Paris to do a PhD. So he's actually a colleague in a sense because you also teach, Rodrigo.
Yes, when I was in, first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you, Hortus Festival, for the invitation. I'm really happy and excited to be in Kochi, Kerala, and in India for the first time in my life. I hope it's not going to be the last time. And yes, I have a degree in literature in Venezuela. I work as a teacher in theory literature,
Literary theory.
literary theoria and criticisms. And then in Paris, I made some studies, but I didn't finish the PhD. I had to, I went to change the year and moved to Malaga, Spain.
Right. Amazing. So you're not just a writer, but also trained in literary theory. I mean, that's amazing. I must say that though Rodrigo is young, but he has a solid body of work behind him. He has he began with short stories, no? So he has about 6 short story collections to his name, and he has also got 2 very well received, acclaimed novels. The first one is called The Night. In fact, it's titled The Night in Spanish itself, in the original Spanish, and it has come out in English translation, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's the first novel. And the second novel, I think we will dwell a little more on the second one, but it's called Simpatia. And it's been translated into several languages. In English, it's called Simpatia. So first of all, Rodrigo, tell us a little bit about the titles of your novels. The fact that the first one is in English, the second one, at least the English translation retains the original Spanish. So this interplay a little bit.
Yes, it's interesting for me because when it comes to the process of writing and creation, I always have the title at the beginning. I don't know why the title comes to me, and it's like a guiding light
Wow.
through the writing process. And when I started to write my first novel, The Night, I knew from the beginning that this is going to be the title because it refers to an album from an American group called Morphine,
Yes.
and they have this posthumous album called The Night. And my novel talks about the power cuts and the
Yes.
electric emergency in Venezuela. So for me, it was like a metaphor
Yes.
for writing. In the case of Simpatia, it was really different because I wrote the first draft of the novel when I was living in Paris in 2018, and it had a different title and different end. But in the process of rewriting, I discovered the real ending of my novel, and I had to change the title.
Oh, I see. So you changed the title
Yeah,
towards the end.
yeah. I choose the word simpatia that you cannot translate as sympathy. Is not exactly the same. I was surprised by the work of the translator in English because they kept the title in Spanish, so that's why the title of my two novels is a really funny situation because it's The Night
Yeah.
on Español
Yeah.
and Simpatía in English when it comes to the
Yeah, I think
translation.
we'll come back to this, to the title of the novel, Simpatia, once again. But it intrigued me that the English translators decided to retain the original Spanish title. And I think we'll have to speak a little bit more about that a little later. But I just also wanted to add that both his novels, The Night as well as Simpatia, have been really critically acclaimed. The first novel, that is, it came out in 2016 and got this very prestigious Mario Vargas Llosa Award in 2019, one of the many awards that it got. And of course, the second novel, Simpatia, was actually quickly translated into English and was longlisted for the 2024 International Booker Prize. I think currently I'm reading this short story collection by Rodrigo. It's called Venecos in Spanish. I think it's yet to come out in English translation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not coming out
Yeah.
in English so far.
Yeah, but Venecos, as he will explain you, is uh, it's the word which is used in Spanish for Venezuelan immigrants. So I think the stories revolve around the immigration theme. Yeah. So tell us a little, Rodrigo. I think we should start from the beginning, and I would like to know when you discovered your vocation as a writer. And every writer has, he or she belongs to a literary tradition. And so, what is the literary tradition that you kind of belong to or see yourself belonging to?
Well, at the beginning, when I was a boy, I dreamed to become a football player. Uh, then I realized I wasn't good enough. So I think when I turned 11 or 12, I started to read a lot of books, adventures, novels, and how do you say, noir, novelas policiales.
Oh, detective novels.
Detective
Detective novels.
novels and stuff like that. And I start to take notes for writing some detective novels of my own with my friends in the school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think I decided to become a writer when I start to read and write poems. I fell in love with a friend. She was a girl of my school, and she never paid attention to me. So I was heartbroken, and I started to write some poems. And then one day, my mother, sneaking in my room, she discovered the poems and thought they were really good.
Yeah.
And she encouraged me to continue with that ability and that vocation, and was a really great help for me to understand that I could have a path writing, not only because I was heartbroken, but because there's a way to get in touch with real things in life.
Yeah, in fact, I think I've read somewhere that, as you said, that your mother was kind of cleaning your room and she discovered these poems of a heartbroken boy. But I think she also encouraged you to present those poems in a competition and you got an award for that very set of poems.
Yes, in fact, wasn't only that your mother says you're good. Every mother thinks their boy are the best, but she encouraged me to present my poems to a contest of young poets. I was selected between the 10 new poets in Venezuela, teenagers, and that was really important because it shows me that you can have a work, you can have partners, you can have a meaningful life with an artistic vocation. It's not something only that you wrote poem for yourself,
Yes.
but you can also get in touch with readers
Yes.
and
Yes, of course, you can create a community of
yeah,
between
exactly.
readers and writers, and yeah, of course. I must also tell you all that this was not just the first award, the poetry collection that his mother encouraged him to, put into that contest, and when you win the award, because even your first story collection, which came out in 2005, that also immediately got an award. Yeah.
Yes, when I was 20, I realized that I wasn't either a real poet because I started to write really long poems with characters and plots, and then I realized I was maybe a short story writer. So I started to write my first short story between the age of 20 and 24. And when I finished my first book, I presented to a contest of a prestigious publishing house in Venezuela, Editorial Monte Ávila, and they have a contest for unpublished new writers. So it was perfect for me, and I presented. I was lucky enough to win the award, and that's how I published my first book when I was 24.
Yeah, so he was just 24, and this book. So, just to underline the importance of the publishing house, I mean, the Monte Avila Publishing House is one of the most prestigious in Latin America, and certainly one of the oldest and most prestigious in Venezuela. So, I suppose this early success, and even in terms of getting critical acclaim for your poetry collection and for this first short story collection, and getting published by Monte Avila, I think must have been a real confidence booster for you to realize that, yes, I'm writing and writing well.
Definitely, because and this is important para subrayarlo,
To underline or to highlight.
to
Yeah.
highlight because um, I mean the work of a writer is a very solitary work, full of doubts and insecurities. But the important is to finish your work and to present it to other writers or contests and to see if anything you write maybe could touch other writers. No, it's not that if you don't win an award, you are not good. It's
Of
not
course.
that,
Of
but
course.
I think the young writers must be open from the beginning to try to make a space in their literary community.
Yeah, and I must also tell you all that, so 2005, this breakthrough where Monte Avila published his short story collection. And in 2007, I think that's something which we really need to share with you all. He was invited to a group called Bogota 39. Now, the Bogota 39 was so they brought together 39 writers who were under 39 years of age. So it was a literary project where, so this was the first edition of the Bogota 39 in 2007. There was another edition in 2017, and when I kind of read that Rodrigo Blanco Calderón was invited in the Bogota 39, for some reason I thought that it must have been the 2017 edition, but no, it was as early as 2007. What, you must have been 26, 27?
26. I was the youngest of the group.
Yeah, so he was youngest of the group and amongst. So basically, the Bogota 39 was this group of young people who were already kind of positioning themselves uh, as not against, but certainly as a counter to the boom writers. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, for me it was a great joy to be part of the Bogotá 39 group because, as I said, I was the youngest of the writers, and it gave me the opportunity to become a friend of certain writers that I read
Yeah.
in the university, and it was for me like a model role for writing, no? And also was this Bogota 39 was a way to present a new generation of writers uh, because when it comes to Latin America, the authors of boom is a great shadow that sometimes
Yes.
is really hard to step aside and
Yes.
but I as a writer I grew up reading Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Mario Vargas Llosa, Julio Cortázar, or Carlos Fuentes.
Yes.
There's no confrontation like father to son generation. I feel like a grandchild or
Okay.
maybe even younger, and for me was a joy and a privilege to be able to read these authors in my mother language.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So, yes. So, I'd like to now come back to to your second novel, The Simpatia. As I said, it was longlisted in 2024 for the International Booker, and since it has been translated into at least 7, 8 languages, no? Yeah. So, I mean, of course, Rodrigo will talk a little more in detail about the novel, but just to give you an idea, the novel is set in modern day Caracas when there is a mass exodus of the Venezuelan elite who have been leaving their pets behind. So, they're leaving the city, they're leaving the country, and they're leaving their pets behind. And the protagonist is Ulises Khan. The protagonist is a movie buff, and I think the novel starts with him receiving a text message from his wife, Paulina, saying that she's leaving him and she's leaving Caracas for good. So that's how the novel starts. And the protagonist, Ulysses, is not so really heartbroken. Actually, he's kind of liberated by the fact that she's walked out on him. And I will not tell the rest of the novel because I don't want to be here, to be spoilers. But the fact is that he realizes that after his wife leaves, he is left with a mission to turn their family house into an asylum for the dogs, for the pets who have been abandoned when people leave. Now, I must tell you that although the setting is modern day Caracas and these abandoned pets refers to a particular time in Venezuela's history when I think there was a huge amount of turmoil and a lot of people left, particularly the intellectual elite left Caracas. These were the changes that were happening with the coming of Chavismo, etc. But it could happen anywhere. I mean, you live in Spain and there's a huge abandonment of dogs. Come summer, even old people are abandoned people leave their grandparents, etc., because it's so expensive to put them in old age homes. So people just abandon, and certainly they abandon their pets. I'm told that the figure in Spain is about 33 pets being abandoned every hour. So, so this is the central motive around which the novel starts. But I was intrigued by the fact that in one of your story collections, which has come out in English, it's called Sacrifices, there is a story titled The New Dialogue for Dogs. The reference is to Miguel de Cervantes, the Don Quixote's author from Spain, which is considered the first modern novel. So the reference here, the dialogue of dogs, is to a novel, an exemplary novel by Cervantes, which in Spanish is El Coloquio de los Perros, no? And I found this story really, really interesting because in this story, one of the characters, a graduate student, Antonio Macias, he's kind of accused of zoophilia. He has a dog, and he writes a letter in his defense where he gives several instances of what he calls illustrious anthropo-canine references. The illustrious anthropo-canine references refer to the man-dog friendship, the literary instances of man-dog friendship. And of course, I mean, the story becomes an exercise in intertextual reading because the kind of references that you have put into that story. So I will not go into those details, but in Simpatia, you kind of return back to this metaphor of, to this motif and to the metaphor of the man-dog relationship, the metaphor of abandoned dogs who were kind of left by these owners to kind of fend for themselves. And they were like, it was like being abandoned by your own family. So clearly, this metaphor lends itself to my right kinds of readings, to different kinds of readings. So I'm just asking you whether it would be accurate to say that the novel, Simpatia, is primarily about family, about belonging, and through the family story, it's kind of a reimagining of affective bonds. You know, the bonds that we form outside the family. I mean, and particularly in modern day life, which are formed on affinity, on affection, on solidarities, you know, rather than just blood ties. So, would you like to comment on this?
It's a great resume of all this topic in my work. Thank you. And first of all, I must say I love dogs. It's one of the greatest love of my life. The relationship that I have with the dogs, and I wrote several stories concerning the relationship between humans and dogs. And one of the things that really broke my heart with the current situation in Venezuela, we're talking about more than 9 million of Venezuela who fled the country and come from different socioeconomic stages, not only the elite, but one of the side effects of the emigration is the abandoned dog, abandoned by this portion of society who have the means to own a dog and to leave the country by plane, as was my case. No, so I tried to represent a vision of the situation in Venezuela, not focus only on the politic side of the problem, but in the society. How in a country like Venezuela, the society became a victimary of the more weak, the weakest beings in the society. No, so I wrote this novel, and at the same time I was writing short story like that one that you mentioned, and I think when it comes to the dogs, they for me represent a kind of purity and kind of love that it's impossible for us, for the human beings, to achieve. No, it's they are being so vulnerable, so loving, so protective with their owners, that sometimes I feel like the human beings could learn something from the dogs, and that's why they are so important to me. But as you said, it's true that the abandoned dogs, the errant dogs, that a situation that not only happen in a failed country like Venezuela, that happens even in Spain. Is really heartbroken to see how people abandon dogs in the summer because they don't have to, they don't want to care of them anymore.
No, I was looking at this family as a metaphor.
Yes,
Yeah, yes.
sorry. My English lasts like my, my good English lasts like 15 minutes and then I start to decay. So yes, and Sympathy is a novel which his main character is called Ulysses Khan. He's a cinema buff, you
Yeah,
said?
he's a cine buff, a movie buff.
A movie buff, and also an orphan.
Yes.
And for me, it was like a metaphor of the abandonment of the broken families. No, even without realizing, while I was writing my novel, I discovered that my novel wasn't really talking about dogs, wasn't really talking about Venezuela. It was talking about the human boundaries
Yes.
and what is a family. That is a question that my character asks himself at the end of the novel. Maybe because this is a question that I ask myself the last 10 years that I'm living outside Venezuela, far from my family, all alone, and it's interesting to think how easily how easy is for the dogs to reconstruct their family if they are abandoned and they have luck, and if they are lucky enough to find another family, they attach to this new family, forgetting the painful past. The human being, we cannot do that.
Yeah, I think, the, as I said, the novel can read itself to myriad readings, to several readings. But I also know that I think the family as a metaphor is something you're fond of. Because in your short stories and also in this very novel, you have talked about the Godfather, the film, the movie Godfather by Francis Ford Coppola. And he looks at it, and I mean, you've said it in your interviews, and certainly it comes out in your stories several times. For example, I think in Venecos, there is a story where these writers, two boys, go to a workshop on the Godfather, and Godfather, not the novel by Mario Puzo, but the film by Francis Ford Coppola. And you have said that the film is a masterclass in how to tell a family story and how to weave plots and how to develop each character. And so, would you like to kind of dwell on this aspect a little bit about your writing regime? How do you work on a scene? Where does writing fit into your daily routine? And do you have a complete plot when you start writing? The characters, just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I must say that I am a very lazy writer. I can spend a lot of time without writing, but that's because for me the writing is mainly a mental process. No, I start to write in my own mind for several months, even several years, a story, and then when I can hold that story in me anymore, I start to write. No,
Okay.
and when I'm in that zone, then I am very disciplined, and I can write every day for several hours. No, for me, it's important to have like the frame of the story. Usually, I know how a story, it could be a novel or a short story, how this story starts and how it is going to end.
Okay.
I always have an image of the end, even
Yeah.
though at the beginning I don't necessarily understand that final image. No, but for me the writing process is a discovery. It has to be the discovery of the relationship between the characters and discover the motivation and the secret that each character has.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
for me that's a definition of a fictional character. It's someone that holds a secret and a motivation. No,
A
and
secret and a motivation.
and
Okay.
when you start to write, it's like to see how it's like a chemical process. Is to see how the characters start to react one another, and it's very interesting because at the beginning you have you know that there are 3 or 4 or 5 characters, but then during the writing, a new character comes up that you never imagined that, and it gets you in trouble because all el esquema, el schema,
The scheme, the plot or the scheme that you
all
have made.
the
Schema, yeah.
all the scheme trumbles, and
Yeah.
you have to figure out how to incorporate this new character in your plot. So it's really fun.
Yeah. Actually, there's a novel by a Spanish writer called Miguel de Unamuno. It's called Niebla, and towards the end of the novel, so the writer wants to kill the character, and the character says, "No, I don't want to die." So you're right. The characters, decide to come by themselves. They have a life of their own, and sometimes they take a route of their own in the novel, and it goes beyond the writer sometimes too. And you've said something very interesting, that what you learned from The Godfather was that there is no main character and secondary character. The secondary characters can be really strong and they can have, protagonism of their own.
Yes, yes. The Godfather is my favorite film. I watch it, the three parts every year, at least two or twice,
Wow.
two times, and I always learn from that movie as a way to develop a character and to develop the plot, no? And when you watch The Godfather and you pay attention not only to Michael Corleone or Vito Corleone or the Corleone family,
Yeah.
but the people that helps
Yeah.
the Corleone family,
Yeah.
it's amazing how the film uh, becomes more interesting, no? And that's why I thought that the main character and the secondary character are equally important to build a good story. We can have an example here. You can think that the most important part of this architecture is only the pilots because support the roof, but without these
Beam.
parallels,
Beam. Yeah.
how do you say that?
A beam.
Without this beam, you cannot sustain the structure, no? And that's the job of the secondary characters. And for me, they are so important because maybe you can write a novel from a secondary character in a novel.
Very, very interesting. In fact, one of the characteristics of Rodrigo's writings is precisely, it's been said that he has this taste for literature that talks about literature. And, you are famous for quoting books and quoting authors within your writing. So this meta-literary quality of your writing is something that I personally find fascinating. And in your case, it's more than just an intertextual presence. It's not just a mention. It becomes an integral part of the novel, and of course, also the presence of cinema. So, do you think that for a reader who's not initiated into the Western literary tradition, or and also the kind of cinema that you are citing is not mainstream Hollywood cinema always. So, first of all, I'd like you to talk about the role of literature and this meta-literary quality of your work and whether it makes it a little difficult for the reader to access your work.
Yes, for me, the most important writer is the Argentine writer Jorge Luis Borges. He was famous for include several literary, philosophic, religious reference in his short stories. A part of them invented.
Yes.
He mixed real characters with invented character or real writers with invented authors. And when I read the short story of Jorge Luis Borges when I was like 16 or 17, for me was very important because it shows me that you don't need to live great experience in your life, great adventures to become a writer.
To be?
To become a writer.
Or to become a writer. Okay.
Yeah, because when you are young, you think you have to live first and then write books about it. It's like the Hemingway paradigm, you know?
Okay. Okay.
The man of adventures and you only can write about your own experience. When you read Borges, he was the most part of his life an intellectual, a reader. You realize that you can build a literary work, body of work, just being a good reader.
Yes. Yeah.
Because a good writer is always first a good reader.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Yes. Yes.
And for me, it was really, really helpful.
Now, it's amazing. You mentioned Borges, and of course, Borges has. So, for example, Borges has several references to India, and he never came to India. In fact, there are critics who say that India is one of the pillars of his work. And so, for example, he has this poem called Buenos Aires, and he writes it in such a way that from Buenos Aires, he takes out the word Benares, and he writes a poem on a morning, on a dawn in Benares. So, I think Borges is a person who never traveled to India, unlike Octavio Paz, etc., who came to India, and there's a strong imprint of India in their works. Rodrigo, nobody has mentioned it in your interviews till now. Nobody has mentioned it in the commentaries that I've seen in your novel. But in Simpatia, there are several references to India. Yes, there are. The very first reference is that the protagonist himself, I don't know if you have realized it, because it's like, it's like Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude. The original manuscript is supposed to be written in Sanskrit, the parchment which Melquiades is reading. And so we in India keep wondering why, but perhaps it's just as unconscious in your case as it was in the case of Gabriel Garcia Marquez. But the fact is that the protagonist of your novel, Ulysses Khan, is a son, is an adopted son of two parents of Indian origin in Trinidad. So these were the coolies who went from India, from UP, Bihar, and then of course from the south after the abolition of slavery in the Caribbean. In the 1850s, 1860s, there were about 500,000 Indians who went as coolies, as indentured labor to serve for the labor needs of the islands there, in the sugar plantations, for the plantation economy. And Ulysses Khan is actually an adopted child of these. So your translators have left it out in English translation. You have mentioned the coolie tradition. In the English translation, they've left it out. Yeah, you must point it out to them. And because I've read your novel both in Spanish and English. And also, you say el legado hindú, which means the Indian legacy in your case. But you see, Christopher Columbus, when he reached the Americas in 1492, he was convinced that he has reached India. He was looking for a shorter route. Vasco da Gama comes here to Calicut in 1498. But Columbus died in 1503 thinking that he had reached India and found a shorter route to India. So this appellation of America as India, or the East Indies and the West Indies, East Indies, the Oriental Indies being us and the West Indies being the Caribbean, because of this colossal equivocation of Christopher Columbus, the word in Spanish that is used for Indians, that is to refer to us, is Hindu. But a translation of the word Hindu cannot be Hindu. So your translators have done that. But the name of the father, the Trinidadian father, is Khan. And so Ulysses Khan decides to leave the H and call himself Ulysses Khan. And of course, there is this reference to James Khan and the canine and so on and so forth. So there's a big wordplay. But I found this reference to India fascinating. And that's not the only reference. The Ulysses Khan's lover, Nadine, or Maria Elena, she comes, so there's a reference that she comes to India and she stays in this Sri Ravi Shankar's ashram for 3 months. And that they believe that she started having mental health issues because of her sojourn in an Indian ashram. So there are these references to India. I'd like you to comment on them.
I feel a little bit ashamed because I wasn't aware of all this Indian reference in my work. And I think there's like a image that we have about India that is just a topic, no? There's a lot of misunderstanding between our world and what we actually know about India. And I think with this character Nadine, I tried to make fun of the topics that the Western make about what they think they're going to find in India.
I could see that it is firmly anti-Orientalist.
It's a way that, but if you read my first novel, there's a lot of more presence of the India, because I was very familiar with the works and the research of Ferdinand Saussure, the father of modern linguistics, and his research about the Sanskrit. And it's amazing to find this kind of echoes. and for me it's important because when I get there I feel really like home. It's really, people are really close. It's, it's strange how you connect with, I don't know how to say it, with people and cultures that seems farther from yours.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's a reflection of the exotic image of India, the sadhus, the fakirs, the ashrams. But I like the fact that you laugh at it a little bit, you know, so,
Yes.
yeah, a little bit, yeah. Well, I think, I mean, we could continue. For example, I would be very interested, maybe you can in a very short answer, because I'd like the audience to come in. I'd like you to tell us if what you are writing, what are your next projects?
I'm always writing different projects at the same time. I'm writing a new short story collections. I'm writing a short novel, and also I'm writing a really long novel that I started more than 15 years ago. And but as I said, I'm a very lazy writer, so I work from time to time in each project. So that's why it took me a lot of time to finish.
I think we've had an amazing conversation with Rodrigo, and I'd like to throw the floor open to the audience. If you have any questions, I know that almost all of Garcia Marquez's novels have been translated into Malayalam, and there is a huge imprint of magical realism in Malayali literature itself. In fact, laughingly, Sachidanandan had said when Garcia Marquez died, that a lot of people here thought that a Malayalam writer had died. So, with that, are there any questions, please? It'll be nice if you can give a short introduction of yourself, just your name and your affiliation, so that Rodrigo can place you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is myself, Janaki, a classical dancer and a speaker, as well as a theater performer. And I came here to talk about myself, my stories, Indakatha. And as I was walking towards outside, as I said, when I'm back, I have seen you guys are talking. It was really amazing and surprising for me. And I thank you very much for your valuable things. And also, I have a couple of questions to you. When you write stories, right? There are two major characters, antagonist and protagonist, right? So there are many other characters as well in a story or cinema or drama, whatever it is. So what is called for other artists? What are the other characters called? And are you just giving each importance the same way give to the protagonist and antagonist? Could you please talk about that in a brief way?
So basically, you're talking about the character development of the so-called secondary characters.
Yes, secondary characters. So we mentioned that as a protagonist and antagonist. But those are two major characters in the
Right.
place in the role, even in the stories or in the cinema or drama, wherever it is. Even in the stories, they have a different, multiple characters in the stories. So what do you call it them as? And how much importance you give for that even single characters, even like a very minor character in the story, how much you give importance to that, or just like a one small character, I can just give it a little bit, and I can just give it away. So I always wanted to know that even a script writer, a story director is giving each and every part of the storyline should very studied and graduated about that particular topic and subject and character, and so giving the life towards that, even if that characters is very minor. So how much importance you give to those characters?
Thank you for your question and your comments. I think it's not always
Sorry, one second. Sorry to
see.
interrupt you. I think we might like to take a couple of questions and see if there are, yeah, maybe there are, combine a couple of questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. My name is Bimal. I am a poet, and I was very glad to hear that you are a poet from Venezuela. And I think I am taking advantage to ask a general question. So we mentioned many writers like George Louis Borges and Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Of course, all of us are very familiar with this poet. I think he as a poet, you started your life as a poet. Then you came into novel. That's what I
Yeah.
understand from listening to this. And of course, the novel Sympathy, which she mentioned about you, which formulates a new natural reaction of human beings in the modern age with love for animals. And a dog being abandoned and joining a new family is a nice question. But no, but I'm trying to ask you that when I was a student in 1980s and 91, I used to read the Indian Express, and we used to get news of Venezuela, Guatemala, the guerrilla warfare going on, the Sandinistas, and probably you were a very young man during those days. I'm a man of 60. You might be maybe 6 years
He
old.
was born in 1981.
Born in 1981, you must be a baby. But we used to get these news in newspapers, Indian Expresses and all that. Probably the reason Barbados and the reason Guatemala and the reason Venezuela are very peaceful and the guerrilla warfare may be over. But have you ever tried to react to these political situations which existed in your state in long years ago? Which have you found any influences of that in your novels, and did it extremely press you to go into love for animals and reactions of families and abandonment of love and things like that? Is it because your country has become too pacific now and the old generations are no more to give you this tip? Thank you.
Bueno, la primera pregunta es sobre los personajes secundarios, ¿no? Y la segunda pregunta es que, bueno, que la segunda, I'll say it in Spanish and on the mic so that you can also get a feel of Spanish. La segunda pregunta es sobre los años 80, ¿no? Él dice que él tiene más años que tú y que lo que en la India se percibía en los años 80 son no, Centroamérica, lo que pasaba en Guatemala, lo que pasaba en Nicaragua, los sandinistas, la guerrilla, etcétera, ¿no? Entonces, parece que ahora que tu novela habla de ese amor entre hombre y perro, animales, etcétera, que no hay ningún reflejo estos días en la literatura de aquellos años de 80. ¿Se ha dejado eso atrás? ¿La situación es más pacífica? ¿Qué pasa?
Well, I start with the first question. To build a character is not a rational process. No, it's a human process. It's try to find the humanity in each character. But we have to remember that humanity is not always a synonym of good. The evil parts of the human nature made us also human. So that's the variety of possibilities that a character gives you, no? And you have to start to see and to understand the relationship between the characters, how this character relates to this one. And it's a way of thinking. You have to think in a functional way. This character is the helper of the protagonist, but also has a story of his own. No? I think writing is a really good way to better understand the human nature, because you have to treat every character as a human being. That means you have to pay attention. This is the most important gift that you can give to another person in this time, no? To give attention, no? And to try to understand what this character is trying to say to you and what is his role in the novel, no? But the problem is you have to be careful to not fall in love with every character, because otherwise the novels can have a different path that you at first imagine. No, if you give way too more attention to a secondary character, perhaps this secondary character is going to replace the protagonist. So it's a very difficult role. I think it's like a mother or father with their sons. You cannot spoil one of them. You, you have to try to be nice with all of them. And that's also the role of the writer with his character. I don't know if I answered your question, but it's kind of what I think. Um, about the second question, well, I was born in 1981. So during the 80s, I was a happy boy in Venezuela, playing football, spending time with my family. But I also realized about the degradation of the democracy during this year, even before the arrival of Hugo Chavez. I lived in Caracas. It was a very dangerous city. There was a lot of problems with the police, with the army, with the repression, with the economical crisis, no? But in those days, in the 80s, Venezuela was still a homeland for the refugees from other countries that were living dictatorships. And that's why in the international arena, countries like Guatemala, El Salvador, or Central America were more popular in the media because that's where the conflicts, the bigger conflicts were taking place. But in the 21st century, with the arrival of Hugo Chavez and all the transformations that my country lived, we became, for the first time in many years, a reference well known in all the planet, for good and for evil, and that gave us a focus that we never had in that way before. And I think all my books would be impossible without the experience that I had as a teenager and then an adult in those years of the 21st century.
Perfect. The last one, I think we'll have to take the last question because we are running out of time and the next session has to begin.
Hello,
We
sir.
certainly can have a discussion outside also.
Hello, sir. First of all, we are honored that you are here. We could taste some of that precious of the Spanish literature. I have a couple of questions. First of all, what are your experience with India? What is your how you know India personally? What are the taste of Indian literature and all? First of all, and the next thing is, you are trained in literature also. You told your training, how long it helped in your writing career? Like what all you feel like it is beneficial, or sometimes it may be a constraint also. Sometimes if you learn more, then you can't express it also. And also you have told that you will stay until you won't write until you have a full frame inside your mind, and then you'll start the writing. Myself, I also a writer and a translator, and I also follow this thing in my short stories. But many of my mentors and teachers usually tell that don't wait for that. You write and improvise while the way. But I felt like I'm like your type of writing. Is it a constraint if we have a frame and then we start writing? Is it a constraint of being improvising or growing that idea, or something like this? Is it a constraining, like having a frame inside a mind when we start writing? And one more thing, it's about the cultural thing. Sorry.
Do you remember everything?
I think we don't have time, and you have asked some very important questions. So,
Okay. Just last question
Okay,
is
okay.
about the cultural thing, that we all have that that we have that cultural roots inside us when we write, where we born, where we have grown up and all. So, do you feel like is those also have built some kind of restrictions or constraints when we write? Like we have to intercross, because literature is transcendental, transitional and all. Literature has a universal cultural, but we are having, everyone have an individual cultural roots. So do you feel any type of struggles or constraints between this cultural
between the local
issues?
and the universal.
Well, I'm going to try to answer.
And this would be the last one
Sure.
because we have to vacate the space for the next session.
Well, all I knew about India before was through my readings of literature or philosophy, of the text, the essays and short story that Borges talks to when Borges talked to the Indian culture, but I aware that my impressions were like a sketch of the reality, and I was very excited, and also a little bit afraid of my coming here because I knew it, I was going to find a reality really, really unexpected of all my belief. It's a really short visit, so I cannot figure out the whole picture, not at all. But I want to continue to my I want to continue to learn about India. No, the second question I think it was the teaching, the role of the. Ah, yeah. Well, I think to have a degree and to teach literature theory, it gave me a structure of how to approach to the different sources that you need to become a writer, because I don't believe in only inspiration. I do a lot of research while I'm writing a novel or a short story. I have to document myself to try to be the closest possible to the truth. No, so for me, it's not a handicap. It's a tool. It's a way to give my text a better structure. No, and what's
Third is that though you're deeply rooted in your culture, like most writers, how does the work become universal? Ikaw nauna adquiere cierta universalidad a pesar de ser contextual en la cultura.
well, I think we have to be faithful. You have to be faithful to your own culture, to your own root, and express it in a way that can be understood by anyone. That's the main challenge of literature. I don't like the writers that you can easily see that I writing a novel about his country, but they are already thinking about the Netflix adaptation. I think it's terrible for that. You have to talk about what you live, what you love, what you want to become, no? In a way that appeals to the feelings. The human feelings are the same. You don't need translation for understanding the feeling of the other. I can see your face, you can see mine, and we can understand what maybe is going on in our minds. So if you write something that appeals to the human feelings in a good way, not trying to manipulate the reader, I think you'll be understood no matter what you can.
So, muchas gracias, Rodrigo. Thanks a lot, everybody. And I think we've had a wonderful session with Rodrigo. Muchas gracias. Thank you.